Welcome to the first of our special Rutland Osprey Project video diaries. Now it might only be mid-April, but a huge amount has already happened so far this year. And much of the action has been centred around the Manton Bay nest, which you can see from Wadescrape Hide here behind me. So let's pop inside the hide and see what's happening today. Welcome to a very cold Wadescrape hide. Now the hide is manned by Osprey Project volunteers every day from 6 AM until 8 PM, and Adrian's been on duty this morning. So Adrian, what's happening?
Well, as you say, it's been a very cold and crisp morning, but we've had a bit of activity on the nest. The two birds have been flying back and forth, and we've got a bit of mating going on, and enough to keep us interested and keep the cold at bay.
Excellent.
Are they still looking away from you, or are they?
They're both sort of looking in that sort of direction.
Are they? All right, okay.
This year, for the first time, we've been able to track one of our birds back to Rutland, and it's been really exciting to follow his progress from the Senegal coast. Now, the bird in question is 0998, who's a translocated bird. He's been coming back to Rutland water every year since 2000. Sadly, he's never bred, but the thing we do know is that over his lifetime, because he's been going backwards and forwards from Senegal, he's migrated something like 75,000 miles. So he really knows what he's doing when it comes to flying home. Anyway, this was his positions over the winter, and you can see over the course of 6 months, the 6 months that he was on the coast between Dakar and St. Louis in Senegal, he flew only very short distances, perhaps a mile out to sea to catch a fish, and then he just returned to this same favoured perch actually on the beach. It's a great place to spend the winter. Anyway, last year we know that he arrived back at the end of March, so we expected midway through the month that he'd begin the journey back to Rutland, and sure enough, on the 12th of September he began heading north. So the first position that indicated he was migrating was at 1 o'clock on the 12th. Then over the course of the next few days he flew north up the Senegalese coast into Mauritania and skirted around the edge of the Sahara, which is obviously a real barrier to migrating ospreys. But the problem with that was that as he got into Western Sahara, he met some really strong northeasterly winds, and you can see over the course of a few hours he was actually blown right out into the Atlantic. So this position here is 9 o'clock on the 16th of March, and he was about 80 miles out to sea. So he was in real trouble. Fortunately, 09's experience then came into play, because he managed to reorientate himself and he got back to land. But we do know from the satellite transmitter that he was flying through the night, because it wasn't until about 5:30 the next morning that he made it back to land. Now, having got back to the African mainland, he then headed back north through Morocco, around the Atlas Mountains and into Europe, and he crossed into Spain across the Straits of Gibraltar. And then came another fantastic nighttime flight. At 7 PM on the 21st of March, he was just in the sort of central part of Andalusia in the south of Spain. And we expected him to roost there for the night. But 09 had other ideas, because next position we got from the radio was 4 AM the next morning, when he was just south of Madrid. So he'd flown something like 220 miles overnight. There was no moon to guide him, because there wasn't any moonlight at all, so he was really using his inbuilt compass to fly in the right direction. And then from Madrid he carried north up to round the Pyrenees and then up the Atlantic coast of France, and he started to make slightly slower progress. He was going about 100 or 150 miles every day, and he even had time to stop off. If we zoom in here in the Loire Valley, he stopped off in the grounds of a chateau, and this shows the amazing sort of technology we now have at our disposal, because this position here is 6 o'clock on the 25th of March, and you can see he's perched 10 metres in front of the chateau, so just incredible detail. And that's all thanks to the accuracy of the transmitter, but also the fact that we can then overlay the positions onto Google Earth. Now, from his chateau he was then really within striking distance of the French coast, and he flew north for the next few days and then reached the English Channel at 2 o'clock on the 27th of March. So now he was really within sight of Rutland, and he flew across the Channel, flying between about 9 metres and 36 metres. And another great thing about the transmitters is it really gives us all this detail about the speed the birds are flying at and the altitude across the channel. And it took him about 4.5 hours to get to the western part of the Isle of Wight, flew over the Isle of Wight and then roosted just north of Southampton, and in fact at Winchester. And we then knew, well, he was within striking distance of home, and over the course of the 5 hours the next morning he flew back to Rutland, and myself and John were at the nest to see him come back. And it was fantastic to sort of be there, to see him return back to the nest site that he took over last year, because we knew exactly what he had experienced over the previous 16 days that it took him to get to Rutland Water. Although 5R and his mate are now very settled in Manton Bay, it has been a fascinating start to the season. 5R returned to the nest on the 19th of March, which was over a week earlier than last year, and a few days later he was joined by a young 3-year-old female, 0009. She fledged from the Site B nest in 2009, and so was very early for such a young female, certainly suggesting she was eager to breed. Just as 00 was getting settled, female number 2 arrived. 5N04 is 5R's sister, and with her own mate not yet back in Rutland, she immediately gave the younger female her marching orders. She then remained with her brother for over a week, predominantly it seemed for the free fish given to her by 5R. By the end of the month, 5R's regular mate was still not back, and we began to worry that something may have happened to her on migration. Fortunately though, everything changed on the 1st of April when volunteer Julie Gregg was on duty in Wadescrape Hyde.
Yeah, it was just after 7:30. I'd nipped out the back for a call of nature, I'm afraid, but that's as you do. And as I just turned around and had a look up, there was this osprey coming really right over the Hyde and right over me, looking very determined. If you see an osprey with a purposeful flight, that was certainly it. So I dashed into the Hyde and looked, and she went straight for the nest. And I say she because that was my feeling at the time, that it must be a female. She went straight for the nest, landed on the nest, and 5N was sort of taken aback, I think. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle, and this other female went up onto the nest perch, and that's when I see that she hadn't got any rings on. So of course I was really excited, got onto Tim straight away, or got onto yourself straight away, and sort of said, I think it's the female come back, but not sure. And they both flew off, so they'd gone for sort of 5-10 minutes. And then it looked like 5N had come back onto the nest because she seemed to be moving nest material about, and she sat up on the perch and seemed quite happy. And then all of a sudden she just took off, and that was the last I saw of her, because the next thing, the other female was back, 5R was there back. And we got another intruder osprey as well. So there was me sort of talking to you on the radio, and you said John Wright will come down and have a look. And I was getting slightly confused by this time because I didn't know who was who. And then you radioed through and said that John had confirmed that it was the female, the unringed female. So that was brilliant.
Yeah.
So there we are, first shift.
Very good. Now, how did it feel to see the female, right like that?
Brilliant. Really brilliant, because we'd all been worried about 5R and 5N sort of getting together, because we knew 09 was back. We wanted, 5N and 09 to get together, because poor boy never had a female. To widen the gene pool is brilliant. We don't want to narrow it down, to widen it as much as we can. To see her to come back was, fantastic.
Great stuff.
Absolutely great.
5R and his mate soon settled into the usual courtship behaviour, and on the 15th of April, 2 weeks after she had returned, the female laid the first egg. 5.5 weeks of incubation was underway. The female is likely to carry out about 3/4 of the incubation, with 5R taking over from time to time to give her a break.
Welcome to the Linden Visitor Centre. This is most probably the best place around Rutland Water that you'll be able to view ospreys from. We've had a pair of ospreys breeding in the bay since 2007. Now I'll take you into the centre and we can have a look at some of the facilities that we have in there.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning. Right, well, in front of us we've got the television screen where we can actually see live pictures coming from the nest of the ospreys. Now, the images this year have been improved because we have installed an HD camera at the nest this year. Looking at the screen at the moment, we can see we've got the female osprey at the front with the male at the back, and that can be distinguished by these head patterns that we're looking at. The male also has a green ring on his right leg with the letters 5R and a metal ring on his left leg. The female, she carries no rings at all, so she's most probably a Scottish bird that he's managed to attract in. Now, ospreys are not the only thing that we have at the centre. If we look out of the window, we can see the kestrels nesting in the box at the bottom, and we also get an array of birds visiting the feeders. At the moment, there are yellowhammers, we get marsh tits, willow tits, and numbers of tree sparrows. And on leaving the centre and walking down towards the hide, it's about a 15-minute walk to Wadescrape Hide. And at that hide, you can view the ospreys. We have a team of volunteers who man the hide from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night with telescopes. So you can take advantage of using the scopes to look out over the nest in the bay.